Impressive.
I was just like, oh, geez, that's me. Yeah.
And would you rather the people online see the presentation, or would you rather focus on?
I think the presentation.
Okay, so I'm going to
Yeah.
share the screen then.
Okay.
All right, whenever you're ready, you got about 5 minutes.
All right.
And you have the meeting already streaming, so anybody who joins on, they can ask questions. You should be able to hear them if they
Okay.
unmute themselves.
All right. I don't know how many people are in it. Will it show?
It'll show you, yeah, or you can always go up, it'll show you the people pop up beneath.
Mhm.
Or you can come up here and see participants.
Okay.
I don't want to leave this up. 'cause it'll show
Sure.
you.
Yeah.
If you want, I can man that for you, so you don't have to worry about
Jill
it.
will even man it for you.
You don't have to, you don't have to be thinking about that while you're trying to.
Yeah. And then Blake, this just goes left and right, right?
Yep, just use the arrow buttons and you should be fine. Oh, hold on, it's clicked on Zoom still, that's why it's not. Okay, go ahead. Now you should be good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I can sell just one of these houses.
Right?
Just one.
Yeah.
Maybe if I would have offered lunch, there'd be more people.
True.
Although I heard there was lunch yesterday, only 2 people showed up.
Yeah. And,
Was it just y'all two?
No, I wasn't here
I
yesterday. I was battling an awful closing that is finally closing tomorrow.
Ah, well, there you go. Of course. Yeah.
The worst loan officer, it's a loan officer, worst loan officer I've ever dealt with.
That's
She's from Illinois, she's just licensed down here. She says she's been in the business 30 years.
yeah. And
Dropping the F-bomb every other word,
your client,
cussing everything, the way we do things.
your client picked the officer?
Yes. I tried to talk her out of it, but it was her aunt. And I don't think that they're getting along these days. And work out for anybody.
Yeah. Oh,
Crazy how many horror stories there are. Yeah, it's rough.
give it a couple more minutes.
Yeah, just reinforced that we have to really push for our people.
Yeah.
And work with people that we know get the job done.
Are you guys staying for the next briefing?
Probably.
Yeah. I'm kind of interested to see what Keller Mortgage is all about. I know a couple people that have used them. I don't know the benefits of it or the perks or.
They save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, you even get a $1,500 credit at closing if your loan's over $150,000.
Huh, for your client?
Yeah.
Interesting.
No closing costs, right?
Right.
I think.
No origination fees. It saves them probably around $4,000.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, well, it is 2 o'clock. I guess we'll get started. All right. I'm not sure how many people are online, but
I don't see anybody. iPhone.
no, iPhone's online. Hello, iPhone.
Hi, iPhone.
Greetings. All right. Well, I believe everybody here knows who I am.
Yeah.
I just met Bobby, what, a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
through the phone, and then I saw you a couple times. Obviously, I know Jeannie from day one that I came here. So today, guys, I am going to be briefing you guys. It was supposed to be on role playing and scripts, but after I built this, I realized that it's kind of weird to go over role playing with somebody. It takes a lot of time just to get to this little point that you want to make
Right.
with the objections and all that. So instead, I just want to talk to you guys about the power of scripts and how to make it better for you to ultimately turn into transactions. Before I get started into the briefing, I want to give, especially you, because you don't know me that well, a little bit of context of who I am and how long I've been here and stuff like that, just to either, validate or invalidate this briefing. I'll
You
leave
can
that.
tell he's in the service. He keeps calling it a briefing.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Throughout this, feel free to interrupt me at any time to ask a question. I don't want you to have a lingering question and then you forget about it. So just interrupt me at any time. But so I'm in my third year of real estate. It'll be 3 years in November. And I believe that because of scripts, I have capped 3 times already in the 2.5 years that I've been here. And if it wasn't for scripts and the power of them, there's no way in the world I would have got to that level of capping. And I'm still refining my techniques and procedures. And everything that I tell you here today, obviously, it's not gospel. It's just my opinion on what I think will work for people. And it might not be for you, but for me, it's been doing fairly well. And obviously, if you take even a portion of this and adapt it to your own style or your own personality, I think it'll help out immensely. All right, so this is what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to talk about why to use a script. I'll talk about different script techniques that I have felt that have helped me out quite extensively. Some key things of powerful conversation, key notes to keep in mind. Hi. I'm going to talk about various types of scripts that I have used. I'll talk about a whole bunch of different scripts that can be used, but I can't get into detail about them because then this class will be 2 hours long. So I'll talk about the real bread and butter for me, which have been open house scripts and for sale by owner scripts that have probably make up 60–70% of my business. So those two have helped me out a lot. And then I'll finish it up with some reference recommendations that have helped me along the way to develop my scripts to where they are today. All right, so why do we use a script? Ultimately, the main point of a script for me is to convince a potential client to simply say yes to you. Whether that's let me represent you, you want to get a yes out of that, or it's getting a yes out of let me have a listing appointment with you, or having them to say yes to an actual full up listing. So that's always the objective of a script, to make somebody say yes and have them want you to help them in whatever they're trying to do. So obviously, I'm not exactly sure how many real estate agents are out there, but somebody told me there's like 2,000 of them just in our area. So there's a lot of agents out there. Good news is a lot of them aren't practicing like they probably should be, or they just have a license, or but you're still competing with a big chunk of them. And a big chunk of those people that are actually active in real estate, guess what? They all have scripts, all of them, or at least the successful ones. So I'm trying to make an analogy here. When you look outside this window over there, you see a whole bunch of cars, and they're all pretty similar. They are 4 wheels, 2 to 4 doors. They roll down the road. They get you from one place to another. At glance, they all look the same. But it's the differences of what's under the hood and some of the small other details that make a car a $20,000 car or a $50,000 car. And like I just told you, lots of agents have scripts out there. You have to make your script that $50,000 script to make you stand out more than the next person. All right. So yeah, those little differences make a big impact. And I'm probably going to say it over and over again, but practice is probably one of those big contributing factors. They're going to make you stand out compared to that next person that's using the same script on that same FSBO or expired or whatever. Seek out resources. Lots of resources out there, and I'll kind of go over some more later on. But for the most part, my main resources for scripts came from YouTube. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. Also, when you go through Ignite, there's a lot of scripts that are handed out there. I think in general, they're great scripts. I hear Bold has great scripts as well. But what's key to that is looking into those scripts and making them your own. And you have to feel comfortable and somewhat believe in some of the statements that you're making to try to convince somebody to ultimately say yes to you. And also, I've learned a lot from seasoned agents. Sometimes we're just chit-chatting and I say, hey, I ran into this situation where I couldn't get the listing, or this happened to me, or that happened to me. And they'll say, well, try using this objection. And I'm like, whoa, that's a great objection that I've never thought about. Or just ask some people sometimes, like, what's an objection if somebody says, I'm working with family, or this or that. So I learned a lot just from being in the office and asking people various things that they've used for objection handling. All right, so here's some script techniques that I use all the time. All right, something called a tie down. A tie down is a simple short question that is tagged onto a statement designed to cause a response. Whenever you're talking to somebody, whether in person or on the phone, I never want to leave a statement, kind of end a statement, and there be this awkward silence and no response back from that person. That's why I try to use a tie down as much as I can. So I always try to make them reaffirm what I'm saying. So, I'll say, selling your house, for the most money possible is something you want, correct? Or isn't that right? Or don't you want to do that? So I think two things get accomplished there. One, you get them to agree with you. And the more you get them to agree with you, they're open to maybe agreeing to potentially the end result, which a listing appointment or a listing or whatever you're trying to get them to do. So always try to end with something called a tie down, and it makes the conversation flow a lot better, and it also keeps them engaged, because the last thing you want to do is throw your lines out there and get zero response. At least with a tie down, you get some sort of feedback. If they're still there, you're not talking to nobody or dead air, and it's just you having a conversation with yourself. Let's see, influence tie downs / embedded commands. Another thing that I try to practice a lot is these influence tie downs. So, a statement like, are you with me? So like, I can say something like, let's try to, get this home sold as soon as we can. Are you with me? It's almost like a pep talk with a coach. That's something coach says a lot, like, are you with me? Are we going to do this? Just get them motivated to, start interacting with you, or ultimately, again, say yes to you. So another statement here, this is an embedded command. This is a way for somebody to, basically, you're telling them what to do in a form of a question, kind of. So subliminally trying to get them to do what you want them to do, ultimately say yes. So are you definitely ready to sell your property? Like, almost a statement, like you are ready, right? But it's in the form of a question, so it's not that aggressive. I think these things are key whenever, especially for me, when I'm making my phone calls. I try to implement these things all the time, not only keep them engaged, but the more times they say yes to me, ultimately at the very end, I get another yes. All right, don't let the script become your enemy. I see this a lot. Obviously, like I've told you before, you need to practice. Have you guys ever got a phone call from a telemarketer and it just starts off terribly? The first 10 to 15, 20 seconds, it's just so bland and lame, and they talk on and on and on, and it just sounds so robotic, and immediately I'm disengaged. I'm like, oh my God, who is this? What are they trying to sell? I don't understand what's going on here. And I end up hanging up. Well, the more you practice, especially those first, 10 to 30 seconds of your script, when you first, for example, make phone calls, I think the better you keep them enticed for those first 30 seconds, and then you can go on with your script from there. One of my general rules that I have is try not to go past 3 sentences when I'm talking to clients, especially on the phone. And you guys have probably experienced it again with telemarketers. I mean, hello, this is Ronald from blah, 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 blah. I just wanted to tell you that, did you know that we have blah, 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 and then blah, 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 and they just go on and on. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I don't want to listen to you anymore. That's why if you keep the general rule of not going past about 3 sentences to them, and keep them engaged with tie downs and having that back and forth conversation, they're more inclined to stay on the phone with you and engage in that dialogue. Obviously, I've seen before some scripts that have been handed to me from Ignite and other places. Sometimes if you've seen them, there's a whole paragraph before you even get a response from the client or ask for a response from the client. And I think those scripts are good in general because they say good things, but I would recommend you guys make it your own and try to make this general rule here to not go too deep into a lot of conversation and topics before you get that response from that potential client. And to go along with those telemarketers, half of them you can definitely tell if they're reading or they sound robotic. You want to try to sound as natural as possible to try to, again, make them stay on the phone with you or whatever you're talking about, even in person. Obviously, you want to sound as confident as possible. You want to sound enthusiastic. You want to sound professional. You want to sound like a friendly person to them. All these things are going to help you keep engaged with them when having that conversation. Ultimately, sellers have one main question that they're going to ask an agent, and here it is. Basically, are you the best agent to help me get the best results? So if you can convince anybody that you are the best agent to potentially get the best results for them, that's ultimately what they're looking for, and what you have to keep in mind when you're trying to make them say yes to whatever it is that you guys are trying to seek out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Next slide. Oh, that's me. All right, some more script techniques here. Learn what to say. Actually, I already told you, practice, practice, practice. Sometimes what I would recommend is think about various scripts that you're gonna try to master. So for example, if you're gonna master, for sale by owner calls, I would say sit down and kind of brainstorm yourself on various things that you want to get across and figure out a way to say those things to start to master your script so that it doesn't sound mechanical and it doesn't sound like you're reading. It sounds very natural. You have to learn the right questions to ask, and basically I'll show you here in a little bit of some objectives that I always want with whatever script that I'm doing, and that's what's going to drive the type of questions that I ask. So I'll get to an example of that here later. Obviously, you have to also know what not to ask. Can't really think of anything in my head right now, but you don't want to ask the wrong questions to turn them off. And I can't think of anything now, but you know them. Just being a social, common sense person, something will pop into your head and like, nope, I shouldn't ask that because it's not going to go well throughout this conversation. And practice delivering. I'll show you some techniques here about various things on delivering your message to them.
We have another one joining just for you.
All right, awesome, welcome. Learn how to listen. Okay, so that's 2 different things that you have to be proficient at. Is one, getting out your script, and then getting it out in a manner that you're going to keep them engaged, like I talked about. But also, at the same time, you need to know your script so well that you aren't just hung up on it and have to concentrate solely on getting your script out. You have to be a great listener. So that's where you have to internalize your script. So you're not trying to think of the next line or concentrating, what am I going to say next? Because the more you listen, the more clues you're going to be able to pick up from that conversation. It sounds bad by saying use those clues against them, but use those clues to find what their motivation is, and listening to them is going to spawn even more conversation, and you're going to build more rapport when doing that. Obviously, when you see people in person, it's great to pick up their nonverbals. That's easier when you're door knock or when you encounter people at open houses. You got to feel their mood and adjust to them. All right, here's some key powerful conversation notes to always keep in mind. For me, when I start to make phone calls, I find it easier for myself to concentrate and really get engaged if I stand up. I find myself initially starting off sitting down, but once I start really getting into that phone call, for me, it's just natural. I have to stand up, I start pacing around, and it helps me concentrate on having a better conversation for me personally, and I recommend that. Also, when I'm having this conversation with people, I have a big smile on my face because I feel that it's more natural for me to convey friendliness over the phone when I'm smiling myself, because it just comes out a lot better if I'm happy about it and I'm smiling, and hopefully it translates to them feeling that you're a friendly person on that other line. Obviously, speaking with confidence is key. I don't know how many times I've seen, even on YouTube videos, where people either aren't confident with themselves or aren't confident with the script in general, and it's a huge turnoff. You can tell when you see these YouTube videos of people doing various scripts online. You start to say a lot, or lose your place, or not know what to say next, or that you get an objection and all of a sudden you're like stumped by it, and you just hesitate. I think that's one of the ultimate turnoffs, and it's hard to recover after you don't sound confident in what you're trying to deliver, and ultimately trying to make them say yes. Be energetic. The more energetic you are, some of these other things are just going to fill in, like being confident, and you're not going to sound like a robotic person on your line, and not going to turn them off to have them just hang up on you. I've already talked about trying to listen in for different clues. One of the biggest things you want to try to clue in on is what their motivation is, and then use that motivation as much as you can throughout that whole process of getting them to say yes. One thing that I do all the time is I repeat and affirm what they are conveying to me. So if somebody says, yeah, we're trying to sell our place because we already bought a place and we're trying to, move in and not have to worry about our place, I'll say, wow, you just moved into a new place. That's great. People like that, positive reaffirmation that, one, you're listening, and two, you're excited about the situation. And quite honestly, a lot of people like to talk about themselves or the situation that they're in. So if you start, saying, that's great, sounds good, fantastic, or whatever it is that you can compliment about them, they start feeling better about you and that conversation you're having. And I feel like that's a strong thing to build that rapport, especially over the phone where they can't see you. And even in person, it speaks even more volumes if you sound enthused and excited to hear what they're saying. Also, sometimes this is tough. Mirror and match. You want to, be at the same level or maybe slightly above of how that other person is. So if, they're not that excited, you don't want to sound all crazy like, hey, let me sell your house. You want to kind of be at their level. So you got to read their body language. You got to read the tone of the situation. If they're a fast talker, maybe mimic them. So the more on tune that you can get with those people, the more rapport you're gonna build. Obviously, if somebody's real low energy, you don't want to bring yourself all the way down to that as well. So maybe a couple of notches up from that, but not way over the top where you're gonna turn them off. And then like, well, what is wrong with this person? And again, practice every speech or every script you're gonna do, because it's gonna come off better when you're trying to talk through those things. All right, so there's lots of various scripts that everybody should have. And believe it or not, whenever you meet a potential client, there's always something you should be able to say script-wise to those people to try to gain their business. So even if you're going to call a past client that you've sold a house to or listed their house before, or if you're going to talk to your sphere of influence, that's a script that you're going to use. So as an example, I want to have some key objectives that I already know or have written down that I want to hit on when I'm making a follow-up phone call from a past client that I've sold a house to. So, hey, Sue, how's it going? Great, Ramon, nice to hear from you, blah, blah, blah. And then you don't want that awkwardness of like, all right, well, that's good. You know what I mean? So that's why I keep those on the side of me and I look down and see what I want to get out of this conversation. So the next step might be like, how was your summer? How was the house? How was moving in? How was it when the relatives met you or came down to visit you? We want to have all of these things lined up already, even from just a simple phone call follow-up like that. You just don't want it to be awkward and have nothing to say. So for a little thing like this, have a script for it. For door knocking, there's various door knocking scripts that I personally have, and it just depends what I'm trying to do for that day. If I'm trying to advertise for an open house, there's various things that I want to say, or if I'm just cold prospecting, there's a way to try to get that person engaged. And I'm not going to go into detail of these because it'll take forever. I didn't build slides for them either, but even if I just listed a property, there's a script for that I want to hit my key objections or objectives when I'm going out to door knock. Listing presentations. All right, so listing presentations, I probably have a few different methods that I use, but it's going to depend on the situation that I'm going into. So if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, I don't know exactly where they're at, I might have a CMA script, and then I'll judge how that's going. And then I feel like, oh boy, I need to jump into something else. Well, let me show you my listing presentation. And then I'll jump into that and try to sell them on that. So it just depends for me how the situation is going or what the situation is before I got there, on what kind of method I'm going to use for a listing presentation. If you look online, there's many scenarios you can see on YouTube of listing presentations. To me, some of them are so mundane and overboard, but I like certain aspects of those that I pull away and I build my own script based off some of those things that I've observed. And a lot of it, you got to put into practice. You got to actually go out and do it and see if it works. If it doesn't for you, change it up. There's been several times that I've gone out not being prepared at all. I remember my first listing appointment, I went out not having a script, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to write a contract. I kind of knew that they weren't really that motivated to go with an agent, but my productivity coach said, you know what, just go out there, take this as a learning opportunity to see what happens. No pressure. You may not get the listing anyway because it doesn't look like you're motivated, but see what happens. And I went on it, kind of fumbled through it, but at least I went through that experience of going in someone's house. And from there, that's when my script started to develop on what I should do the next time. And then the next time, the next time. So I'll build off of those experiences. Even if somebody calls me off of my yard sign, which has happened many times, like, hey, I see this house out here that you listed, how much is it, blah, blah, blah. I have a script for that even, that you have to internalized because that happens out of nowhere. I'm just driving a car, going to McDonald's to get some lunch, and all of a sudden I get that phone call, and I don't have my script handy, but I've internalized what my key objectives are that I want to get out of that conversation. Working with buyers, obviously, you're going to encounter them in various situations. One time I saw somebody walking out of a model home. I engaged with them to talk to them. I'm at a family barbecue. I know a certain way to engage with them. So like I said, there's just scripts for many, many scenarios. And obviously we have expires and physicals. I'm going to talk a little bit in depth about for sale by owner scripts. But first, we'll talk about my open house script. I've had some pretty decent success in gaining clients with open houses. And I want to say my first year, I probably only converted 2 clients through open houses. But from all those practices and engaging in people, I've kind of tweaked my methods and what to do, and I've learned from my mistakes. And I probably tripled the amount of clients that I gained from my second year of open houses because I've learned from that. Here's the first thing that I personally do during open houses. I always, and I feel weird sometimes doing it, but when I first get there and nobody's come to visit yet, I practice what I'm going to do for that open house. My intro when people walk in. And it may seem like a simple thing, like, well, yeah, just say hi and take a look. But I want to come off as a professional that knows all the ins and outs of this place, even though I'm not really trying to sell that house per se. I'm trying to gain them as a client. The more knowledgeable I sound about this house, maybe the more confidence they have in me that I know what I'm doing. So, I always review the listing and come up with a few key notes that I want to convey to them, talk to them about the good and the bad of this place so that they see right away that I'm not just there to sell this house no matter what. I'm going to point out the bad things that, or at least concerns that I have about that certain house, or things that they need to keep in mind about. So if it's a 3-year roof, a roof that has 3 years on the life, I want to be forthcoming and honest. Like, this house has this great thing, that great thing, but something you want to keep in mind is the roof is getting a little older, so it might be tough to insure, or you have to address it pretty soon. I think that openness and honesty up front may give them confidence in you that you're not just there to say whatever you need to say to get that transaction done with them. Also, another thing that I like to do is on that day of the open house, I have, a good 3 to 5 minute spiel to give them on what the market is doing that particular time period. So, whether it's, it's a hot market or it's a buyer's market or whatever it is, I want to come up with a good, little spiel so that I can show them how knowledgeable I am and maybe, gain that confidence in them that I know what I'm talking about. So those 2 things are my key things that I want to know and practice before any potential client walks into that open house. So I'll practice that a few times before every single open house. And obviously when I deliver it, I want to sound confident. I want to make them know that I'm the professional that knows what is going on. Also, another thing that I've kind of internalized is another script on the various areas in this whole general area. So Englewood, Northport, Punta Gorda, Sarasota, Port Charlotte. I already have a script for myself that talks about the pros and cons of each area. And because a lot of times we get a lot of snowbirds that come in and they don't know exactly what they're looking for. They're not sure if they want to have access to the beach, or they might not know the pros of being in Northport, where you get more square footage for your money and you're closer to the highway. Potentially you can zip to Sarasota or Fort Myers or whatever from Northport. So I give them all the flexibility and pros and cons of each of those locations. And when I give that little spiel to them about each of those areas, it opens their eyes and it gives them, wow, didn't even consider that. Okay, I could get more house in Northport. All right, further from the beach. Huh. So, if you do just those three things, know about the house, have a market update in your head to give them, and then be able to talk like an expert of all these surrounding areas, what they can get from them. I think that alone right there says a lot when you're engaging people in open houses. You make them feel like you know what's going on and you're the subject matter expert for this area. The other thing, and I've talked to Bobby about it, is I never ever have a sign-in at my open house. Now this goes a little bit beyond scripts, but I think it plays into it. And the reason why I personally don't like the sign-ins right there for them as soon as they come in the door is because I've been in that situation before where somebody wants my information and I don't want to give it out. I don't want spam. I don't want people calling me. I don't want to be bothered. So if you have it there and you insist that they sign in first, I don't know what the percentages are, but there's a decent chance that you might get false information. And then if you start to build that rapport during your open house and they want to engage with you, but then in the back of their head, like, oh my God, I just started this relationship with a lie. I said, my name is Joe Blow and my number's 555, whatever. And now you may lose that potential client because the whole relationship started off with a lie and they want to save face and they don't want to be embarrassed and you just lost them. And I don't know about Jeannie, but I've been at plenty of open houses where 0 people show up or 1 or 2. And when that 1 or 2 people show up, man, I want to be prepared and I don't want to lose that client. So every single spiel I give of a script for that 1 or 2 clients, I'm going to make it the best I can because that might be the only chance I get for a client for that day. So I think, not putting the script, the sign in there and making sure that I know about this house, I know about the market, and I know about all these surrounding areas, that alone builds my chances to gain them as a potential client. I went to an agent's open house one time just to see how they're doing, this new agent. And the greeting that he gave at that open house was incredibly awkward. I mean, it came to the point where they're just both standing there at the door, looking at each other like, all right, so just look around. I mean, it was just so incredibly awkward. And I told him, dude, you have to give a good greeting. You have to be friendly. You even have to give them an out. And what I mean by that is sometimes people come in and they're like, they don't know that they can just come in and look around. Sometimes they feel like they need to pretend they are a client. Because I've done that before. Before I was an agent, I wanted to see a house. I walked in, I pretended I was in the market for buying a home. That's why I try to give them the out initially, like, hey, are you just a neighbor trying to come see what's available? Or are you actually looking? Or, and I make it clear to them that it's fine if they're just trying to be nosy and see what the neighbor has or what homes look like in this area. And you give them that out initially, and if they say, yeah, I just live over here, I just came in to see, at least now you don't have to waste your energy on going through the whole charades of trying to gain them as a client. Yeah, you give them that out initially, and you won't waste a lot of time for a second client that's walking in, and then you don't know who to address your time to, these people or these people. So right away what their intentions are, and you give them that out to say, it's okay to just want to look around, no big deal, feel free. Give a guest your practiced intro. I don't know what the heck that is. No idea. I don't know. I guess I was tired last night when I was doing that. Before I let them go into the house, after I give my intro little script to them, I said, okay, cool. After you guys look around, please get back to me and tell me what you think about this house and tell me if it fits your needs or not. So you tell them that, and in their head now, they're going to be critical about the place, hopefully, and give you that feedback that your client may want, or that listing agent may want. And not only that, but it spawns conversation. They start talking to you about, I didn't like how this thing is like that. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why they do that. You know, you build that rapport that way. And also when you agree with them, especially in things like that, they start trusting you. Because, you know, if you agree with them about what they saw that they don't like, you know, it just build that rapport, and that's what you want. Give guests about 1 or 2 minutes before you talk again. I think what I meant by that is after I give them that initial spiel, I let them wander. So they go to one side of the house, they start looking over there, I let them be, I'm not bothering them. They start kind of looking back towards your way, then usually it's the kitchen or something like that. I start doing general chit chat. Where are you guys from? Okay, I noticed you have this shirt on, blah, blah, blah. Are you a Browns fan or whatever it is? Just small little probing questions. And with these questions, your objective is to find something you guys can relate to. Find what their intentions are. Find where they're from. What kind of family they have, big family, small family, kids, no kids. All of these little things are going to help you engage in more and more conversation to help build that rapport. Then they go out to the other side of the house, and then they come back. And then typically, that's when I say, you know, how was it? What do you think? Well, what are you looking for? And this is when I start problem solving for them. So this wasn't the fit for you. Did you know in this area, houses are more like this or that? Or you get a bigger house for your money over here? Or did you consider that being next to the highway, you're close? You know, all of these things. And then the more open houses and more listings you get to know, like, you know, well, this subdivision has this or that. Is that what you're looking for? It's closer to the beach or closer to Home Depot or this park or that park. And that's just going to come with time when you start to learn all the various areas. And it's, you know, even now, I don't know a lot of the areas, but I've done so many transactions in here, Northport, Venice, this place, that place, that I start to take note of the various things that are in that area. And I use them when I'm doing, especially open houses, to talk about what they're looking for and trying to problem solve for them to get them ultimately what they are looking for. You know, I remember that same interaction that I talked about where that agent was hosting that open house and it was an awkward exchange between him and the clients. I told him, I was like, hey, do you mind if I talk to them a little bit? That's after they went to one bedroom and were coming across. Then I started to implement all of this and I started to engage with them, blah, blah, blah. And once I showed them or told them about all the various things in the area and what to consider for this city or that city or this town, that town, I saw it in their eyes. They were locked in and they were intrigued and they were talking to me and blah, blah, blah. At the end of that conversation, well, can I get a card, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, sure, you can get, you know, whatever his name's his card, and he'll definitely, you know, you can talk to him or me. If they would have called me, obviously I would have passed it to him. But you can see how a weird, awkward situation got recovered just by using a lot of these things and building that rapport. And they engaged me. They said, can we get a card? So ultimately, I convinced them to say yes for us to help them out. All right, so like I told you before, sometimes you only get that one or maybe two opportunities, sometimes zero, but in an open house, you get that one or two potential clients in there. You don't want to lose them. So, you know, you implement all this, you got a great chance. And at the very last minute, if it doesn't feel like it's going right, you got to pull out all the tricks to try to get their names, get their information. Even if they did write some of their stuff down, but you just don't feel like things are going right, like you didn't win them over, and try to pull out all the tricks to gain that business. Like, So are you actively looking for, or working with an agent? Well, kind of, yeah, I'm kind of working with this person. To me, that's an in right there. They're kind of working with somebody. So I try to start selling myself then, in various ways. And, sometimes my last ditch effort, if it doesn't look like it's going well, and I've talked to Bobby about this, and it looks like I'm never going to speak to them again, and they didn't give me their contact information, like, I was like, well, hey, did I mention that with all the home buyers that I personally work with, I pay for your home inspection up to $500 at closing. You know how many times I get people walking out the door? Really? Absolutely. Well, that sounds good. Yeah. Just put your name down here and let's try to see what you're looking for. Blah, 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 blah. That is like my last ditch effort, go-to line that I've had many heads turn back around and be like, wow, that sounds great. And I'd rather have, $500 less and still get a commission than just nothing at all. So I've used that several times, and 4 or 5 times guaranteed it's worked for me. And that's one of the reasons why my open houses have been successful towards my latter years versus my first year. So I use that one a lot. Try to get that business. Don't take no for an answer. Even if they say I'll work with an agent. Well, have you signed the paperwork? I'm available at any time. Call me day or night. Blah, blah, blah. I'll try anything to get that business. All right. Any questions about open houses? Have you guys done open houses yet?
Probably
Yeah.
not, with everything the way it is.
I've done
Have you?
Yeah.
them, yeah.
Now, and I've
That's
talked to you before about open houses.
Yeah.
Is there things from that last slide that you would implement that you haven't been doing, you think? And I've kind of given you a bunch of
Yeah,
this
you
spiel already.
gave me, a lot of that already, so I kind of started doing that, and it's seemed a lot better now,
Yeah.
because the first open house I did was kind of rough, because I had a couple of people come at one time, and I was like, all right, started asking me questions, a few people, and I was just like, all right, who I talk to, same thing like you said,
Right.
you're like, you're going back and forth, and,
Right, yeah,
it gets a little rough
Wait
sometimes.
till season, you have 10 couples come in at once.
yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's, I had them sign, the first one I did, you gotta sign in. You wanna come and see the house? And somebody else told me, have them sign in and, tell them it's because of COVID, just not like, just make them sign in. So it's like, all right. So I make this, not an agent from here, from another Keller Williams. So I'm like, all right. So I make them sign in, and then all of a sudden, like you said, it puts up that wall with
Barrier.
them, that barrier with them.
It's a huge barrier.
It was, and then coming around, I built a rapport with them, and then they're like, oh yeah, all right, Bobby, yeah, no, I want to buy something right now, and I'm looking, I'm here for the weekend, and I'm like, oh great, I'll send you some places over. But I send them, I text them, email them, no response back.
Right.
So I think, they were bad numbers, bad email addresses,
Yeah,
and I'm like, all right, I think but I still didn't know how to go about that where, do it at the end. And that's what I did. The last one I did, last couple I did, I've been waiting for the end to come around, and they're more comfortable, and I joke around with them a lot. And then, a couple of guys came the other night. I was at the garage at an open house, and it was a pink and purple room. Like, all right, which one of you guys is this room? And they started laughing.
right, yeah.
And just, time they come around, they're, telling me about what they do. I don't even ask them. Oh yeah, I'm a Windows guy, and I'm like, oh, I just had a Windows guy come over to my house. It's $14,000. And it's going a lot better, more smoother.
Right.
And even the phone calls, like you're saying, like I was thinking of 5, 6 steps ahead of what they're going to ask me.
Right.
And so my girlfriend does this too. We work together, and she sits here and she listens to me on the phone, like call people, and I'm like, all right, so she's like, that phone call was horrible. I'm like, what do you mean? I told her like that. She goes, nope, it was horrible. She critiques me so hard, to where I'm starting to feel like And the more I do it, the more confident I'm getting, learning about,
Right.
Different markets and, how things,
Yeah.
just everything.
And I would even encourage you to record yourself while you're doing these because,
You'd be surprised at how you sound.
yeah, not only that, but you listen back like, I should have said
that was
this
bad.
instead of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
By recording myself, I learned, I'm a Jersey girl, and I talk really fast. And I
Yeah,
learned that I have to slow down.
that's me too. They're like, what? I
They
call,
can't, they don't understand me, I'm going way too fast.
I like it. I could do the, make phone calls like, hi, this is Bob Winter from, Keller Williams Realty Gold, and I'm like so fast with it. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And then
Yeah.
I'm not even giving people the opportunity to cut in, because I'm talking, so,
Mhm.
I'm like, all right, and
Right.
slow down.
All right, I got 2 more slides left. So,
Okay.
man, I can't believe it's been 45 minutes. All right, jeez. All right, for some of my owners, when I first started real estate, my first prospecting was calling people, expires and for sale by owners. And I got 5 listings in my very first 5 months, and 4 of them came from phone calls. And the reason why I think I was so successful with the phone calls is because about 4 or 5 months before I even got my license, I knew I was transitioning into this career field. And I kid you not, I listened to hundreds and hundreds of hours of prospecting on YouTube. While I was working out, while I was running, I just had it on in the house. That's all I did nonstop, literally hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I learned so much. So that the very first time that I was in here in Ignite, and my productivity coach gave me some phone numbers to dial, right away I was doing it, booked my first listing appointment pretty fast, and boom, within 5 months, 4 of those came from the phone calls. And I was like, wow, I'm not gonna say it was easy, but because of all that practice that I've heard and internalized and developed my own script based off of what I heard, that helped me big time. And that's phone calls is a big part of my business. And I'll be honest with you, if I did real estate the way you're supposed to, the way you're taught to, in regards to prospecting, I swear to you, I'd have 3 times more business than I've already done. I'll be honest, it's a lot of work, though, and I don't want to put myself out there that much. I gotta slow down, I get too old to be stressed out about things. So, I should be hustling more, but I'm comfortable where I'm at now. All right, so what do I got here? Practice your intro line a few times before you talk. Oh my God. So because I don't prospect as much as I should, I probably make phone calls once every 3 months. Just because once, and I only do that once my pipeline starts decreasing again. And I get rusty at first, my first 2 or 3 phone calls. So now I practice or visualize what my key objectives are when I'm trying to make these phone calls. And I rehearse a little bit, and then I start making them again, because I forget. Even the experts that you see on YouTube, these experts even have their trifold boards out, and they have all their objections. They've been doing this for years, each and every single day for hours. They still have their scripts, cues right in front of them, ready to go. Actually, I talked about this already. Sound friendly, sound excited, and don't be robotic. My go-to, go ahead.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
When you make those phone calls, you call them by their first name or their last?
If it's on there, absolutely. So my first intro, when I make my phone calls, and typically I concentrate on for sale by owners, is I'll be like, hey, good afternoon, Bobby. This is Ramon with Keller Williams. How you doing?
Okay.
Just like that.
That's what I've been doing, so I just want to make sure I shouldn't be calling by their last name or sound a little stiff.
Yeah, no, right. And I do it just in that tone. I never be like, hi, Bobby, this is Ramon with Keller Williams Real Estate. I see that. I sound like I know them, because I throw them off like, oh, hey, hi. I could tell they're like, oh, who's this guy?
Yeah.
So that's like my go-to line right there. Hey, Bobby, this is Ramon with Keller Williams Realty Gold. How are you doing today? And right there, I gauge their mood. fine, what do you want? Or, hey, Ramon, or, how are you doing? Oh, like, great, man, thanks for asking. Just like that. My next go-to question, and here are my objectives right here. This is my goal every time I make a for sale by owner call. I want the answers to all these questions here so that I can try to gain their business and ultimately make them say yes. So then my next go-to question is, hey, I work with a number of buyers in your area. I just wanted to see if you're paying 3% if I actually brought you a client and we went under contract. And if they say yes to that line right there, oh my God, I'm halfway there. They're already going to pay 3%. So I'm like, yes. If they say, even if they say 2%, fine, I'm almost there. And these aren't in any particular order, but if they say yes, they will pay 3%. I'm like, great. See, I'm rusty. What's my next line? Then typically I say, hey, I see you're listed for, 200,000. I'm just curious, how did you come up with that price? Well, I did comps, I did blah, 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 blah. And that could lead me through a bunch of rabbit holes. Like, okay, so you really didn't use any real analytical tools to help you figure this out. Are you opposed to me doing a free CMA to tell you exactly what your house is worth? And I put pauses in there. I think these pauses are key to, so you're just not spouting up big old line to them. You want to emphasize certain points to them and slow it down a bit so it's not just this throw up of a script. Yeah. Another key thing is I want to know if it's vacant or not. And there's several factors on why I want to know that. One, if they say, no, I live here, then you kind of sense their motivation. Maybe they are desperate to get out. I don't know if they want to buy next. So you've got all these little sub questions that come up from some of these things. And it's all about probing to see what their motivation is, where they're at. If it's vacant, maybe my next go-to line is, it's vacant, great. I was like, hey, you know what? Have you ever considered on letting a professional real estate agent like myself conduct an open house and we can come to terms on a commission agreement? I can drive in some traffic, and the perks for me is that I get potential new clients, and the perks for you is you might get that house sold that day when I drive in people with my methods of, bringing people to your house. How does that sound? Again, with the, what's that word I used at the very beginning? Tag, whatever. I don't know what I said. It's on my first slides.
Tie down?
Tie down. Oh, exactly. Always use tie downs all the time.
I've been successful with vacant open houses for sale by owners.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And then they see that you're coming from contribution. You're trying to help them out. You don't want that you do want that listing, but you're not pressuring them for that listing. You just try to make a rapport with them. They see that you're the one putting that effort into it. You have that face-to-face with them. And then ultimately, when it doesn't work out for them, as most of them kind of don't sometimes, you're the person they go to list that property. Where are you moving to next? That's another sign like, man, my favorite for sale by owner calls is if they need to sell to buy somewhere else in that area. That gives me a whole slew of flexibility and things that I can offer them to try to help them out. Because what I'll go to, if I can't get the listing straight up, it doesn't look like it's going well, I'll say, I tell you what I can do for you is if you list with me for the full 6% on your purchase, I'll give you a 1% credit back on whatever house you buy, and you can use that towards closing. How does that sound? Just, and I don't throw that out initially, but I engage in the conversation from the very beginning and see if that's something that I need to use. Because I'll take 5% of those two transactions. Heck, I'll even take 4%, quite honestly. I mean, I don't want to limit myself that much, but whatever it is that I need to do that's legit and, acceptable from the brokerage, I would try to use these things to get them incentive. But especially when they say they're moving just locally, I can try to get, and even if they don't let me list, I know that if they sell for sale by owner, and I try to help them out them, maybe I'll be the one that gets that full 3% when I try to help them find their next place. I'm gonna wrap it up, Blake. I know I'm kind of running along here, though. How soon, you want to see what their motivation is, see how fast they want to get out of that place. So you can start judging their timeline. If, maybe they don't know the process and how long they need to get out into the next place. And you can help them problem solve that from beginning to end. If they can't sell, I say, well, if you can't sell by yourself, what's your next step? Are you going to go with a professional agent like myself to help you out? How do they come up with the current price? I already talked about that. Will they let me do an open house? I already talked about that. And at the very end, if just to kind of make them feel, if you've made a rapport with them, say, well, look, can you just promise me that if you are going to list, I say this when they talk to a lot of agents, can I have at least that opportunity to prove myself and try to gain you as a client to try to get this house sold? It's hard to say no sometimes to people when you've built that rapport. So that's definitely a go-to line that I use on the phone as well. And then at the very end, if it still doesn't look like it's going right, or just to reassure them that I'm their person for them, I'll talk about some of the things I do. Like, well, if you go with an agent, here's what you get from me. You can reach me at any time. I don't work for a big team. It's just me. One phone number directly to me. You're not going to get an admin. You're not going to get an assistant. It's always me. I'll be there for you day or night. I do professional pictures for you. I have so many clients that want to do, or coworkers that want to do open houses. And I can drive traffic there. Whatever it is that you do, or your marketing strategy to gain their business, use that at the very end. Here's some references. This is my last slide. Some references that I recommend when trying to get better at scripts. Use what KW has. Use what anybody has. Strip out your favorite parts of these scripts. Make them your own, as long as you're comfortable with them. I've stripped out good lines that other people use, that when I use them in real life, I don't feel comfortable with them. So I don't use them anymore. But it's all trial and error. Like one time I used to say, so you're not listing with an agent, what's the matter? Or do you not like real estate agents? Or what's the deal? I used to use that. Sometimes I get a giggle, but sometimes it was awkward. So I kind of scratched that out. Maybe every now and then if I feel playful, I'll throw that in there just to get a giggle out of them, or see what the reaction is going to be. These people right here is what I like. This guy right here, Derek Klimsky. This guy has about 10 or 12 YouTube videos of him live prospecting. He puts the best of his videos on there. This guy is the smoothest talker you will ever hear trying to make phone calls. He even gets people to hang up with them on him, call him back, and books that listing appointment. And this guy is good. This guy here, he's pretty good. I like listening to him. This guy, I love his calls because it's raw from start to finish, 2 hours, nonstop, the good, the bad, the ugly, and it puts you in these scenarios, real life scenarios of how it is to grind out these phone calls each and every time. And this is the ones that I listen to when I'm at the gym. I mean, he may go 2 hours and I get a single appointment. He may go 2 hours and get 2 or 3 appointments, but it shows you the real life grind of making phone calls, and I love it. Because you get so many objections from people, and how he counters those objections it's so invaluable. This guy here, I like him because he's not the smoothest talker. He stumbles, he stutters, but he still gets the job done, and it reinforces, even if you're not the best, but you're out there trying to engage, you're prospecting like they tell you to, you haven't mastered your script yet, but it's proof that he's a little rough around the edges, but he still gets it done. So I like listening to him as well. And some of this stuff that I briefed you today, I got from this book right here that I purchased when I first got into real estate. It's by Kevin Ward. It's the Book of Yes. Like I told you, that's the ultimate goal of having a script, having that $50,000 script rather than the $20,000 script, and making people ultimately say yes to you for whatever your objective is, to get the listing, to get an appointment, to have them say, yes, find me a house. That's the objective of scripts. Are there any questions about anything? No? Well, hopefully you learned a little something. And if anybody has any further questions, reach me out anytime. I'll be happy to talk to you more about these things or specific objections. I'm always open to talk to you guys about it.
That's the
Thank you.
class I've attended,
Oh, thank
but
you.
beyond any other script class.
Well, thank you.
Because it wasn't just regurgitating. You're
Right.
explaining why and how and
Sure. Well,
put
thank you,
real life
Jeannie.
behind it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Means a lot to me from a
Very
seasoned
good.
person like you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Ramon.
right.
That would've
And
been helpful
now,
when I
we
started.
do have another class on Keller Mortgage coming up, right now, actually. Dane from Keller Mortgage is going to speak with us. Let me get out of this.
Good afternoon.
Good Dane. Let me go back to our Zoom. Hold on. Oh, I want to stop share. There we go. All right. And you know what? Let me.
Good afternoon. How is everybody?
Good, we're
Good.
good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us? No?
Can you hear me, Blake?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, I'm pulling up my PowerPoint here real quick.